In the Bible, Jesus often went toe-to-toe with a group of people called the Pharisees. In today's video, we're going to talk about who those guys were in Jesus' day. 5 things you need to know about the Pharisees. Number 1, the Pharisees were a powerful Jewish sect exercising considerable influence over the Sanhedrin. That's the fancy name for the Jewish High Council. That means, by the way, that the Pharisees had a part to play in the conviction and wrongful death of Jesus. Number 2, the populist Pharisees often fought with the aristocratic Sadducees, another group, and most notably, these two groups fought over the doctrine of the resurrection. So I guess you could think of these two groups kind of like denominations today, where they have different doctrinal distinctives that they believe in. Number 3, the Pharisees were committed to ritual purity, and a lot of times this means that they missed the point behind God's law. This is what Jesus says in Matthew 23. He says, "The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses." So he says to the people, practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example. He says, because they're hypocrites, they don't practice what they teach. They crush people with unbearable religious demands, and they never lift a finger to ease the burden. Jesus said stuff like this about the Pharisees all the time, and this is why the Pharisees were trying to get Jesus killed. They hated the fact that Jesus was calling them out for their hypocrisy, following the letter of the law, but denying the spirit of the law. And that leads to the 4th thing that you need to know about the Pharisees. Jesus warned that no one can be saved by their own works, not even a diehard Pharisee. He said in Matthew 5, verse 20, "I warn you, unless your righteousness is better than the righteousness of the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." This is at the heart of biblical Christianity, that we're saved not by our works, not by keeping a checklist of religious requirements like the Pharisees were so good at. But no, the Bible teaches that we're saved simply by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. Nothing more, nothing less. But this went against what the Jewish people had been hearing for generations from their religious leaders and from the Pharisees. And Jesus came to correct the misunderstanding. And number 5, here's the good news. Even the most hard-hearted Pharisees can be redeemed if they'll trust Jesus for salvation. In fact, the most famous Pharisee of all, his name was Saul, and then he met Jesus, and he changed his name to Paul. Here's what he wrote in Philippians chapter 3. He says, "I was so zealous that I harshly persecuted the church. And as for righteousness, I obeyed the law without fault." And then in verse 7, he says, "I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done." See, the truth is, today we still have Pharisees. Maybe they don't go by that name, but we have religious rule keepers, people who think that they're going to get to God by keeping the rules. But what Jesus would say to modern day Pharisees is, you can't save yourself. The only way to have a relationship with the God of the Bible is by trusting in Jesus and what he did on the cross for your sins.